Hello, I'm Matt Galloway, and this is the Current Podcast. Some Canadian towns and cities are taking big steps to address rising crime that they believe is tied to growing homeless encampments. The town of Smithers in northern British Columbia is one of them. It has hired private security guards to monitor an encampment and the downtown core. Gladys Attrell is the mayor of Smithers. Mayor Attrell, good morning.
Good morning, Matt.
Smithers is a small community. Just, 5,400 people or so live there. How have you seen your town change in recent years?
Well, I think, what we used to see, which was there's always been some folks that live rough or homeless in the community for sure. But in the last several years, coincidental with pandemic times, we started to see really big changes. And then with the types of drugs that are available on the street, I think, what people used to see as a few folks living homeless, that folks were happy to help, that the community, in some ways has transformed. We have a lot of disorder that many other communities have an encampment and then sort of mini encampments in other parts of town. So it's quite extraordinary.
Where are people, are these all locals, or is your sense that people are coming from elsewhere?
Well, they're local, and I guess it just depends a little bit on how you define local. Smithers, though a small community, is a hub community for our region. And so there are people who live in more remote communities that will come in, either for social reasons or to receive services or, because they have mental health and addictions issues, and they're looking for both the social, the drugs, and the help.
And so what have you heard from residents about their concerns around the encampment, the mini encampments, and potential safety risks?
It's really across the board, from people saying, understandably, just get rid of it, asking council to show the courage to just shut the camp down, get the people out, to others on the other side of the spectrum that are demanding that we as the municipality provide better services, shelter services, that right up to the addictions and mental health services. So it's a full spectrum. But I would say lots of residents and lots of businesses are looking for mitigation for sure. The social disorder has ramped up, the inappropriate behaviors, extending to criminal behaviors. People in many ways have just had it. They've been, the theft, the physical assaults, the demonstrations that people see between others, in the camp, just have reached a boiling point.
What is that social? You've given a couple of examples, but what does that social disorder look like?
Well, from seeing people in, kind of the throes of what it looks like after someone has taken some of the drugs, the thing that looks like that swaying back and forth where it's obvious that people are now, they've taken something and they're not in a good condition. We've had overdoses and deaths downtown. We've seen fires in the camp. It's between the town hall and our library, so there's a high fear for building safety. People, as we see in other communities, camped out either in our public square downtown, in doorways. There's been fires, there's fights, there's assaults. People have been assaulted, both in their homes and in businesses. So it's pretty dramatic and traumatic for those who experience it. And it's traumatic for the people who are living in those conditions. I'm not deaf to that. There's no upside. The folks that are living in camps they're not great lives. We get winter here. It's going to get cold. So far, I don't think we've had anyone freeze to death, but we've certainly had deaths in the winter. So it's just the full spectrum, and it's really hard on people. It's hard on everyone, and we just don't have the ability in this small town to provide all the services without the required help from other entities, and that includes the provincial government. And
so council has, as I said in the introduction, now decided to hire private security to monitor the encampment. Why private security, and why not law enforcement?
Well, we do have an RCMP detachment in town. And, again, this is a small community, so our detachment is about 18 people. That includes highway patrol. The town of Smithers pays for 11 members. It's quite a lot for a town our size. So we do have good members in the police force. We have, and they do their job, but it's a small detachment and they can't be everywhere all the time. We have funding internally for 2 community safety officers who, right now we only have one. one, though. I mean, people come and go. So we're seeking that second officer. And we just don't have a way of, either physically getting more CSOs, supporting it through our budget. And so this is a way of making resources go a little further. Council wanted, alternates provided. So this is one of those alternates, and we've decided to try it using a northern-based security firm who will provide those eyes, at the camp, providing a little security for people who live around there, for people who work around there, and for people who live there, being a bit of a deterrent for criminal activity. And when they can, they will also be patrolling downtown. So these are to cover the hours when our CSOs aren't working. So after hours and weekends.
What sort of powers are the security guards going to have? You mentioned a number of incidents, assaults, fights, what have you. How are those security guards going to be able to monitor the situation? What sort of powers are they going to have to enforce the law, for example?
Well, they're not law enforcement, so they're not going to be doing the job of the RCMP. Our CSOs don't either. They have our CSOs and RCMP can enforce our bylaws. Of course, the RCMP can enforce criminal infractions. What the security guards will be able to do, or it's our hope that they'll be able to do by their presence, is deter people from going into the encampment if they have no business there, to stop things going into the encampment that might be dangerous, and then to also call if they need extra assistance. So to call the RCMP. So while this might seem like it's, maybe not as effective as if we could have more CSOs and more RCMP, it's something we can try with the resources that we have. And I think, having a municipality go to this extent describes the bleakness of the problem from our perspective. We've added staff. We've paid for additional RCMP. An additional RCMP member is about $220,000. In my time on council, we've added a couple. That's a lot of money for us to add. We've added CSOs. So this is one more thing we can try in the face of not having the things that we need, which is shelter, more supportive housing, a place for people to go when they actually want help for their addictions. We have something here, a situation table, and it does extraordinary work by helping people one-on-one, but we just don't have enough of the things that we need to enable us to move people off the street, into shelter if they need it, into housing, and then to get the supports. We don't have that. And so this encampment, we don't have a way to deal with the encampment. People want us to close it down. We can't close it down.
I was going to say, what do you say to people who say shut it down?
Well, you have to hear them. I get it. I understand. Town Hall is across from the encampment. I see the encampment every day. I see the people who live in there every day. I see the results of that every day. I have lots of sympathy for how people feel. Lots of them have been hurt. Residents and businesses and the people who live in the encampment have been assaulted and physically hurt. I can see that and I have sympathy, but we cannot, we do not legally have the authority to close it down if we can't move people somewhere else. So that's what we're working on, hoping that we will get those shelter beds, that we will get enough housing, and that there will be supports to move people to treatment when they're ready to go.
What would you say to people who say that this is not a long-term solution, that you've described a problem, but that this is simply the cliche is a Band-Aid on a problem, not a long-term solution to what you're describing in your community?
I absolutely agree. I agree. We need those other things that I described. We need the services appropriate for the people that need them. And it's beyond the scope of our local government to do that. It's not our mandate to do that. But of course, everyone knows this story. It's in towns across Canada. We're faced with the problem in our community. So we're taking some steps. We're going to monitor it. See, is it working? Are we getting good results from it? What else can we do within the resources that we have available? So I agree. This is not a long-term solution. The long-term solution is proper health supports for those that need them. If people are in the, if their behaviors are criminal, there ought to be a way to deal with them through the criminal justice system as well. So there are shortcomings in every avenue. And until we address those, we're going to have these problems in communities. But for us in this town, we're going to take a step that we could figure out how to do, see how it works, and then keep banging the drum to get the right supports in a community our size. The province is doing all kinds of good things, but we're not feeling them in our town. We're not getting the shelter. We don't have, there's stuff coming, but it's, 2027. That's 2 more winters. So we're just not there yet. I hope we get there. But in the meantime, we're going to try what we can to try to make it safer for the people who are living vulnerable lives and for our residents and our business owners.
Gladys Attrell, good to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate your attention to it.
Gladys Attrell is the mayor of Smithers, British Columbia. As she mentioned, communities across the country are facing similar concerns. Last week, Barrie, Ontario, declared a state of emergency to deal with similar issues to the ones unfolding in Smithers. Alex Nuttall is the mayor of Barrie, Ontario. Mayor Nuttall, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on today.
Why did you declare a state of emergency in your city?
Well, because there's an emergency here. The emergency is in some ways criminal in nature. It is in some ways healthcare related and environmental in nature, and quite frankly, just socioeconomic in nature. So I think it's important that you label something what it is and then move forward with how we're going to have a long-term effect on it.
You have described what is unfolding in your city as lawlessness. What does that look like? Give me an example or paint me a picture.
Yeah, I'll give you August as an example. We had double homicide, dismemberment of those bodies. We had, rampant drugs, overdoses, assaults. The Wednesday before I announced the state of emergency, which would have been, something like the 3rd or 4th of September, we had 2 cases of fire set, a tent that was, busted by the police, which contained 2 crossbows, starter pistol, drugs, drug money, 4 knives, and this is just sitting right on the side of the street in downtown Barrie. And beyond that, the encampment where we had the issues of the double homicide and certainly the murders and the other crime taking place, we had 100 individuals using the washroom right into our streams, which were going right down to our beach and into Lake Simcoe, which is where we pull our drinking water from. It's just the lack of order, the lack of positive, I think, living has resulted in an emergency being here on the ground.
And so you've said that you want to, these are your words, reclaim our streets, our boulevards, our parks, our squares, our feeling of safety, and our order. What will the state of emergency do?
Well, what it's been able to do for us, I think Barrie's in a little bit of a different scenario than many, many different cities across the country, although I think it's not much different than the mayor I just heard before me. We are not responsible for our social services. That's not because we don't want to be responsible. It's because there's provincial legislation that defines that the Barrie social services need to be procured through our service manager, which is the County of Simcoe. And so we don't really have control over the ability to provide the services, help, supports that are required here. County Simcoe is funded by the federal government, the provincial government, and the municipal governments, of which the city of Barrie provides about 25% of the municipal contribution to the county. What we've been able to do through the state of emergency is to set up an emergency management team, to create hierarchy inside of all of the different services that come together, the police service, the fire service, the bylaw department, the County of Simcoe. And to the County of Simcoe's credit, they stepped up and they were able to deliver 160 beds for us to be able to start working with individuals who are in encampments and providing them space and shelter moving forward. So, what it's done is allowed us to access resources. It's allowed us to get a stable approach in place by bringing all of the agencies to the table and identify any of the gaps that are out there that would have, potential, us missing the mark in terms of meeting what the previous judgments on removing encampments have been. And so we're doing everything we can to live by the rules that have been outlined by the judiciary to this point, and we wouldn't be able to do that without this state of emergency in place.
Have you considered, Mayor Attrell was talking about hiring private security, for example, in Smithers to help patrol encampments, but also give residents around there maybe a greater sense of security. Is that something that you'd consider?
No, we actually went the opposite way, but we're in a different situation in the sense that we don't have the RCMP and we don't have the Ontario Provincial Police. What we have is the Barrie Police Department. So if more resources are needed in order to meet the day, they come and request more resources to meet the day. And that's what we've been doing over the last couple of years. When I took office, there was 0 officers in our downtown. We then, the following summer, I think got to 2 and 4. The 2024 summer, we were able to get I think somewhere in the neighborhood of about 12 by the end of the summer. And this year we increased that to 17, including special constables. So, we're trying to bring everything together in a single strategy, restore order in terms of making sure that the criminality and lawlessness is not taking place. At the same time, have all of the benefits of housing, of mental health support, of addiction support in place prior to going and removing these encampments, so these individuals aren't, just left wandering off, but rather given the opportunity to restore to a very, successful life, hopefully, by working through the different pieces of the system that are coming together at this point. So
you've said we encourage those who are in the encampments to go somewhere that doesn't have the same standards when it comes to encampments. Where are the people who are living in those tents going to go?
Well, I think that you're actually taking half of a sentence that I say, which is that if you want support and you want help, Barrie's the place to do it. We want to provide that to you. But if you want to live in addictions and if you want to live in tents on the sides of streets, that's somewhere else. That's not Barrie. There are places around Ontario that sanction encampments. There are places that allow camping. Barrie's not one of them. What we are wanting to do is enable people to deal with addictions, enable people to get the mental health supports, the food, the shelter that they need, but at the same time restore order on our streets by letting individuals know that we want to be there to help you, but you have to live by the norms of our city, which our city is saying is helping people get out of addictions, out of those emergency situations they're in, and into a long-term successful plan going forward.
I guess the question, and that's the heart of that quotation that I read, the question is whether the services are there for those who might be looking for them, or the services are there that would allow them to live in a sense of safety. There are concerns that have been raised about that. Have a listen to this. This is from Keenan Aylwin, former Barrie City Councillor and a local housing advocate.
There is not enough resources to support the number of people who are experiencing homelessness on a daily basis in Barrie, and we've known that for a long time. All you need to do is check the County of Simcoe data portal, where you can see shelter numbers each and every night, and you can see that the shelter system is consistently at or over capacity in the city of Barrie. So we know the resources aren't there. The services that are there are inadequate. They're trying the best they can with the resources they have, but it's not enough to support the need in our community. Mayor
Nuttall, what do you make of that concern?
Well, look, I think there's a few things. Keenan and the last council failed to call a state of emergency. They missed the opportunity to be able to step in when this was only focused on fentanyl and focused on drug-related issues. And that's unfortunately a sad day in our city's history, because we know where that's led to. Secondly, it's interesting. I would have agreed with Keenan in the beginning of August that there wasn't the amount of housing or supports available that were needed. What's happened since then is something completely different. The provincial government has provided homelessness prevention funding, almost doubling it. We have received additional shelter funding from the province into the County of Simcoe, allowing for both Tiffin Street and for Blake Street to be able to be used for additional shelter. We've also seen the opening of the Heart Hub here in Simcoe County, called the Heart of Simcoe. That funding from the provincial government that's been put in place to allow those supports to be placed. And in advance of declaring the state of emergency, we put the county on notice that we would be removing encampments, and we needed to have space available for literally in excess of 100 individuals that was not being communicated before there was space for. The county went to work. They had about 2 weeks to put it together, and they came with 160 rooms available or spaces available for individuals to be removed or offered space to as the encampments were removed. And so, I think that while that might have been the case in early August and quite frankly through to mid-August, what the county's been able to do is free up a whole bunch of space. And right inside the emergency order, it's interesting because, criticizing the emergency order that frees up resources to allow additional services for individuals who are suffering, that allows for additional resources to be used to provide housing and apartment support and transitional housing, is a little bit strange because the services that are being asked for by Keenan in that sentence are actually provided. The resources for them are provided through the emergency order.
I have to let you go, but I just wonder what success here looks like. One of the things that the Mayor Smithers said is what she's doing is not a long-term solution. And if housing is an issue and those supports are an issue at the base level in your community, what does success look like here for you?
Well, I think there's different levels of success, like you're saying, but just right off the bat, when we removed the encampment on Mulcaster Street in Barrie, 39 out of 44 individuals have accepted help and support and housing. I want 100% success, not 85, but 85 is a really, really good start. I think we can all agree on that. But there's a much broader question. Like, this isn't a Barrie emergency. It's a state of emergency that's been declared in Barrie. But this is a national emergency, and it's a provincial emergency, and it's in every downtown of every mid-sized and major center in our country. It started in Vancouver, and it made its way all the way to Halifax. And so, our office isn't stopping with just what we're doing in Barrie. We're going to start putting a lot of pressure on our provincial and federal counterparts to come to the table. And I'm not just talking about money. Like, really, money. What we've done through our state of emergency said, we'll go it alone if we have to, providing these services, right? Where I think that we need to go is to ensure that the laws reflect being able to clean up communities, that compassionate intervention is allowed, that if a requirement for the use of the notwithstanding clause is in place to remove an encampment that's stopping a person in a wheelchair from going down the sidewalk, that is in fact used. And so I think there's a lot of work to be done on the federal and provincial level on this, as much as is being done here in the city of Barrie right on the ground.
Alex Nuttall, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
You too. Thanks so much.
Alex Nuttall is the Mayor of Barrie, Ontario. You've been listening to The Current Podcast. My name is Matt Galloway. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you soon.